My name's Jake Mitchell, and I never thought I'd be writing this down. But after what happened last week, people need to know how a homeowners association turned my life into a nightmare. I'm not some drama addict, I'm just a regular guy who fixes cars for a living. But when you mess with my family's land, that's war. It started with the cameras. I'd installed them after my dad died, leaving me his 10-acre property just outside Knoxville, Tennessee. The place was his pride, a rusty farmhouse, overgrown fields, and a workshop where he taught me everything about engines. Mom always said the land was cursed, but Dad laughed it off. "Nobody steals from a Mitchell," he'd say. Guess he was wrong. Last Tuesday, I noticed the feed glitching. The living room camera showed static at 3 a.m., like someone had jammed the signal. I shrugged it off until my German Shepherd, Duke, started barking at the woods behind the house. That's when I saw the footprints. Fresh ones, size 9 boots, leading straight to my property line. The next morning, I got the letter. "Dear Mr. Mitchell," it began. "Per HOA bylaws, your unkempt land violates community standards. You have 72 hours to clear debris or face fines up to $250,000. Signed, Linda Carter, HOA President." I almost laughed. My dad's land wasn't part of any HOA, but Linda Carter? She'd been sniffing around since I moved in. Mid-50s, bleach blonde hair, and a smile that looked like she'd practiced it in a mirror. The kind of woman who'd call the cops on kids selling lemonade without a permit. I stormed to her office, a fancy glass building with a sign that read Maple Ridge Community Association. Linda sat behind a mahogany desk, sipping almond milk lattes like she owned the world. "Jake, so lovely to see you," she said, her voice syrup-sweet. "Ready to clean up that eyesore?" "My land's not in your HOA," I snapped, slamming the letter down. "You've got no right." Her smile didn't budge. She slid a document toward me, a property map with my land circled in red. "Oh, but it is. Your father voluntarily joined in 2015. Didn't he tell you?" Bullshit. My dad hated HOAs, called them gangs with lawnmowers. But there it was, his shaky signature on the dotted line. "This is forged," I said, my voice shaking. Linda leaned forward, her perfume choking the air. "Now, why would I do that? We're just trying to protect property values." "Unless you can't afford the fines?" That's when it hit me. The cameras. The footprints. This wasn't about grass length. She wanted me gone. That night, I dug through Dad's old files. Bank statements, tax records, nothing about an HOA. But under his toolbox, a crumpled photo of him arguing with Linda outside this very farmhouse. Dated 2015. My phone buzzed. A notification from the security app. Camera 3 backyard was offline. Again. I grabbed my flashlight and ran outside. Duke growled, hackles raised. The camera hung crooked, its wires cut clean. And there, half buried in mud, was a silver pendant with Linda's initials. LC. She'd been here. I didn't sleep. By dawn, I'd hacked into the HOA's server. Thanks, YouTube tutorials. Buried in their files, a proposal titled Maple Ridge Expansion Phase 2, with my land marked for a luxury RV park. Linda's handwriting in the margins. Mitchell won't sell. Remove him. My hands trembled. They weren't just fining me, they were framing me. The cops came at 8 a.m. 2 officers, badges glinting, asking about reported threats I'd made against Linda. "She's lying," I said, voice cracking. "Check the cameras. She's trespassing." The older cop frowned. "Cameras have been down for weeks, son. Miss Carter said you've been unstable since your dad died." That's when I realized she'd erased everything. I'm writing this from my dad's workshop, Duke at my feet. The power's cut. My phone's at 3%. They'll probably take the land tomorrow, but Linda messed up. When I hacked the HOA server, I found something else. A folder labeled Phase 1. Turns out she's done this before. I charged my phone in my truck, hands still shaking. The Phase 1 folder was full of PDFs, property deeds, fines, and a list of names. At the top, Harper, Robert, 12 Maple Ridge Drive. The address was 5 minutes away. I drove there in my pajamas. The house was a rotting bungalow with a wheelchair ramp. A man in his 70s answered, eyes bloodshot. "You're Earl Mitchell's boy," he croaked. "Knew you'd come eventually." Robert Harper smelled like bourbon and regret. He'd been the first target. Linda forged his dead wife's signature to seize his land after she passed. "She wanted to build a clubhouse for her rich buddies," he said, spitting into a coffee can. "I fought until she threatened my grandson." He pointed to a photo on the fridge, a teen with Down syndrome grinning in a soccer jersey. "Ethan's all I got left. Linda said she'd call CPS, claim I couldn't care for him, so I signed." My throat tightened. "Why didn't you go to the police?" He laughed bitterly. "Her son is the police." I didn't see the black SUV parked down the street, not until its headlights flooded Robert's living room. A tall guy in a sheriff's uniform stomped up the porch. Derek Carter, Linda's kid. His badge gleamed like a threat. "Visiting hours are over," he said, hand on his taser. "Unless you want to explain why you're harassing seniors at midnight." Robert froze. Jake was just leaving. But I'd already seen it, the silver pendant around Derek's neck. L.C. Linda's pendant. The same one I'd found in my mud. Derek followed me home, headlights drilling into my mirrors. I hid the phone under my seat, still recording. Let him try something. But he just leaned out his window, smirking. "Nice place." "Shame if it burned down," I snapped. "Tell your mom I found Phase 1 and the pendant." His smile died. "You're dead, Mitchell." Back in the workshop, I replayed the recording. Static hissed where Derek's voice should have been. They'd jammed it. But then I noticed something. In the video, Derek's patrol car had a bumper sticker. Knoxville Sheriff's Association. Member since 2020. The same year Phase 1 began, I spent dawn digging through Dad's shed. Behind his tool cabinet, I found a dusty safe with combination locks. Dad's birthday, 04-23. Inside were land surveys from 2015, the year Linda claimed he joined the HOA. Every document stamped "rejected" in red. A sticky note in Dad's handwriting. "Linda's a shark. Don't let her smell blood." And a USB drive labeled "backup." The files made my stomach churn. Security footage from 2015. Linda and Derek sneaking onto our land at night, planting HOA signs. Dad confronting them. Linda shoving him. He fell, clutching his chest. She'd triggered his heart attack. I vomited in the grass. All this time, I thought Dad died in his sleep, but she'd killed him. And now she wanted the land that witnessed it. Derek's SUV roared into my driveway at noon. This time, he had backup. 2 deputies. "We've got a warrant," he lied, waving a paper, "for illegal firearms." They ransacked the house while I stood there, numb. Duke lunged, teeth bared, until Derek tased him. My dog collapsed, whimpering. "Stop!" I screamed. Derek smirked. "Should have sold when you had the chance." They left with Dad's safe, the USB drive, and my dignity. But they missed the SD card taped under Duke's collar. The SD card was cold in my palm, smaller than a bullet. Duke whimpered when I pulled it free, his fur still singed from the taser. I plugged it into my laptop, half expecting another dead end. But what I saw, it changed everything. The footage was from Dad's old hunting camera, the one he'd hidden in the oak tree by the property line. Grainy, but clear enough. October 12th, 2015. Dad stood in his overalls, shotgun slung over his shoulder, facing Linda and a younger Derek. Linda waved a paper, her voice shrill. "Sign the HOA agreement, Earl, or we'll make your life hell." Dad spat at her feet. My land's been in my family since 1932. Get off it. That's when Derek shoved him. Dad stumbled, clutching his chest. Linda laughed. Should have taken the deal, old man. They left him gasping in the dirt. The camera kept rolling. 2 hours later, Dad crawled to his truck, keys shaking in his hand. He never made it to the hospital. They murdered him. I threw up again. Duke nuzzled my leg, still limping. We're gonna burn them down, boy, I whispered. Every last one. But first, I needed proof that couldn't be erased. Robert Harper answered on the first ring. Meet me at the Walmart parking lot and bring cash. He showed up in a stained bathrobe, reeking of fear. Linda's got eyes everywhere, even the damn grocery store. I handed him the SD card. I need copies, 10 of them. Mail them to these addresses I'd scribbled a list. News stations, the FBI, even a true crime podcast host. Robert's hands trembled. If she finds out, she threatened your grandson, I said, voice low. This ends now. He pocketed the card. You're just like your dad, stubborn till it kills you. That night, Derek returned. No uniform this time, just a black hoodie and a crowbar. I watched from the workshop as he jimmied my back door. Let him come. I'd rigged the house with Dad's old hunting traps. Tripwires on the stairs. Bear spray rigged to the doorknobs. And under my pillow? The Smith & Wesson Dad taught me to shoot when I was 8. Derek stepped into the kitchen, crowbar raised. His boot hit the wire. Snap. A bucket of motor oil dumped from the ceiling, drenching him. He slipped, cursing, as the bear spray canister detonated. My eyes! He screamed, clawing at his face. I stepped out of the shadows, gun aimed. Tell Linda I've got the footage. And copies. He lunged. I fired a warning shot past his ear. Next one's in your knee, I said. Walk away, now. He limped off, swearing revenge. But I knew the truth. Linda was scrambling. At 3 a.m., my burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. $500,000 for the SD card. No cops. I didn't reply. Let her sweat. The next morning, Deputy Morales showed up, a rookie with acne and a nervous smile. Mr. Mitchell, we, got a complaint about traps? I played dumb. Traps? Like for raccoons? He shifted, avoiding eye contact. Look, I'm new here, but the things I've heard about the Carters... He lowered his voice. There's a storage unit, off Route 27. Derek rents it under his girlfriend's name. Might find something there. Why help me? He glanced at Duke, still favoring his tased leg. I became a cop to protect people, not this. The unit was padlocked. I picked it open with Dad's tools. Inside, boxes labeled HOA Phase 1 through 3. Deeds, bribes, photos of Robert's grandson Ethan at school, and a ledger. Payments to Sheriff Dalton, $15,000 per month. The sheriff wasn't just corrupt, he was on payroll. I took photos, hand steady. This was bigger than Linda. It was a machine. As I left, headlights flashed. Derek's SUV screeched into the lot, tires smoking. Mitchell! He roared, jumping out with a pistol. I ducked behind a dumpster, bullets pinging off metal. You're dead! He screamed. Dead! But I'd already sent the ledger photos to Robert. Back home, the farmhouse was burning. The flames ate the farmhouse like it was made of paper. Black smoke choked the sky, and the heat melted the tires on my dad's old truck. I sprinted toward the blaze, screaming Duke's name until I heard barking. He was tied to the workshop door, fur singed but alive. A note duct taped to his collar. Last warning, next time, the dog burns. Linda's handwriting. I untied Duke, hands shaking. Should have killed me instead, I muttered. But she didn't know about the storage unit, or the ledger. Deputy Morales found me at the gas station buying bandages for Duke's paws. They're saying you did it, he whispered. Arson. Derek's got witnesses. I showed him the photos from the storage unit, the ledger, the bribes, the sheriff's name. Can you get this to the FBI? He paled. If the sheriff finds out, he already knows, I said. And he's coming for you too. Morales swallowed hard. There's a safe house. Abandoned cabin near the river. I'll text you the coordinates. The cabin was a shack with moldy walls and a wood stove. Duke curled up by the fire while I sorted the evidence. Dad's backup USB, the SD card, photos of the ledger. Then my burner phone buzzed. Robert Harper. They took Ethan, said he's missing. I know it's her. Help, I called Linda. She answered on the first ring. You took a kid, I hissed. You took my son, she snapped. Derek groaned in the background, alive but hurt. Bring the SD card to the old quarry, alone, or the boy dies in a tragic accident. The line went dead. I strapped Dad's shotgun to my back and drove to the quarry. Moonlight lit the cliffs like bones. Linda stood by her Mercedes, Ethan tied up in the back seat. His glasses were cracked, face streaked with tears. Jake, he cried. Linda aimed a pistol at his head. Where's the card? I held up the SD. Let him go first, she laughed. You think I'm stupid? Toss it here. I threw it off the cliff. It vanished into the dark. You idiot, she screamed. Copies, I said. Sent to 12 news stations. They're airing tomorrow. Her face twisted. She aimed the gun at me now. Then you die tonight. A engine roared. Headlights blinded us. Deputy Morales' patrol car skidded to a stop, Sheriff Dalton in the passenger seat. Stand down, Linda, the sheriff barked. It's over. She froze. You promised? I promised money, not murder. He turned to me, all fake concern. Jake, son, hand over the evidence. We'll clear this up. Morales stepped out, hand on his holster. Don't do it, Jake. He's lying. The sheriff pulled his gun on Morales. Should have stayed quiet, rookie. 3 guns pointed, 4 hearts racing. Then Ethan kicked Linda's knee. She stumbled, firing wild. Bang! The sheriff collapsed, clutching his thigh. You bitch! Morales tackled Linda while I yanked Ethan free. Run! I shoved him toward the woods. Follow the river! Derek's SUV screeched into the quarry. He leapt out, shooting blindly. Mom! Linda screamed back. Kill them all! I dragged Ethan behind a boulder as bullets sparked the rocks. I'm scared, Ethan whispered. Me too, I said. But we're gonna live. I promised Morales returned fire, covering us. Go, I'll hold them off. We ran, Ethan, Duke, and me, into the cold, dark woods. Behind us, engines revved. Sirens wailed. But ahead, headlights, dozens of them. News vans, police cars, a crowd with cameras. Robert Harper stood in the middle, holding a sign. Justice for Earl Mitchell. The SD card copies had gone viral. The crowd surged forward, cameras flashing. Reporters shouted questions, microphones jabbing like weapons. I shielded Ethan, still trembling beside me, while Duke growled at the chaos. A woman in a sharp blazer grabbed my arm. Channel 6 News. Is it true the sheriff was involved? Did Linda Carter kill your father? Before I could answer, federal agents in bulletproof vests pushed through. FBI, everyone back up. Linda and Derek were cuffed, faces bloody. Morales stood beside the agents, gesturing at the quarry. Evidence is down there, SD cards, ledgers, everything. Linda locked eyes with me, venom in her stare. This isn't over, Mitchell. An agent shoved her into a van. It is for you. They let me keep Duke during the interrogations. We sat in a stale FBI office for hours, replaying the nightmare. Agents flipped through Dad's files, their faces hardening at the footage of his last moments. We'll need the original SD card, one said. It's gone, I lied. The truth? I'd mailed it to Robert Harper's P.O. box. Insurance. Ethan and Robert were sent to a safe house. The last I saw of them, Ethan hugged me, his voice muffled against my shirt. Thanks for not being scared. I was always scared, I said. Robert squeezed my shoulder. Your dad's smiling somewhere, kid. The farmhouse was ash. Insurance called it suspicious. No payout, but the land, still mine. I parked Dad's truck in the scorched driveway, Duke sniffing the rubble. That's when I found it, half buried in the soot. Mom's locket, the one Dad kept in his toolbox. Inside, a tiny photo of them on their wedding day. I clenched it in my fist. We're rebuilding, boy. Better. 2 weeks later, Deputy Morales knocked on my trailer door. His uniform was crisp, badge shiny. Sheriff's suspended. They're charging him with racketeering. What about you? I asked. Promoted. He handed me a file. Thought you'd want this. Inside, HOA. Phase 4, Mitchell property. Plans for a private airstrip. Dated last week. Linda's been talking from jail, Morales said. Says she's got partners. Big ones. That night, headlights pierced my trailer window. A black sedan idled outside. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a briefcase. Mr. Mitchell, I represent investors interested in your land. We're prepared to offer $2 million. I slammed the door, but the next morning there were fresh boot prints around the trailer, and a note. Burn the evidence, or we burn you. I dug up Dad's shotgun, loaded it with buckshot, and propped it by the door. Duke watched, ears pricked. Nobody steals from a Mitchell, I whispered. The investor's name was Paul Renner. Silver hair, tailored suit, smile like a knife. He showed up every Monday, briefcase in hand, offering more money. $3 million now, he said, leaning against his sedan. Next week it drops to 2.5. You're not a businessman, Jake. Take the deal. I spat on his polished shoes. Tell your bosses to kiss my... Bang! The shot came from the woods. Duke yelped, collapsing beside me. Blood seeped through his fur. Duke! I dropped to my knees, pressing my hoodie against the wound. Renner didn't flinch. Pity, dogs are so... fragile. I lunged at him, but his bodyguard tasered me midair. Pain exploded, muscles locking. Next time it's you, Renner said, driving off. Duke survived, but the vet bill cleaned me out. $4,300. I sold Dad's truck to pay it. That's when the eviction notice came. Per County Code 12.7, your trailer violates zoning laws. Vacate in 48 hours. Bullshit. The county never cared about zoning. I called Morales, now Sergeant Morales. It's legit, he said, voice tight. Renner's got people everywhere. Judges, realtors, I can't help. I moved the trailer deeper into the woods, off-grid. No power, no water. Just Duke, Dad's shotgun, and Mom's locket. Renner found us anyway. You're stubborn, he said, standing in the rain, flanked by goons. But I'll win, I always do. I aimed the shotgun. Get off my land, he laughed. You're squatting on state property. See this? He held up a deed with the governor's seal. Eminent domain. This land's now a public utilities site. The paper shook in my hands. Fake. It had to be. But the signatures? Real. Check the news, Renner said. On my dying phone, a headline. Local man blocks critical infrastructure project. Holding progress hostage, says governor. Comments called me a selfish redneck, a terrorist. That night, I dug up Dad's safe again. Buried deeper now. Inside, a map of the land with red circles. Underground springs. The reason Dad bought it. Renner didn't want an airstrip. He wanted the water. I filled mason jars from the spring, labeled them, and mailed them to every news station. Test this. 2 days later, a reporter barged into Renner's press conference. Mr. Renner, independent labs found lithium in Mitchell's water, worth billions. Are you seizing his land to mine it? Renner's smile cracked. Preposterous. That's environmentalist propaganda. But the damage was done. At 3 a.m., men in hazmat suits stormed the woods. They injected Duke with something, tossed him in a van. Stop! I chased them barefoot until a dart pierced my neck. The last thing I saw? Renner's face, lit by flashlight. Should have taken the money. I woke up strapped to a metal chair, head throbbing. The room smelled like bleach and burnt wires. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A TV played muted news footage. Jake Mitchell wanted for assault, illegal firearms, and eco-terrorism. Renner sat across from me, sipping espresso. You're a ghost now. No family, no allies, just me. Duke whined in a cage nearby, drugged but alive. Let him go, I croaked. He's just a dog. Renner smirked. So were you. He tossed a file on the table, photos of me at the quarry, the trailer, the woods. Sign the land over and I'll make the charges disappear. Refuse? He nodded to Duke. The dog gets a bullet, then you. I stared at the pen. Dad's voice echoed in my head. Nobody steals from a Mitchell. I spit in Renner's face. His goons dragged me to a mining site, a gaping pit in the heart of Dad's land. Trucks hauled lithium-rich soil and guards patrolled with rifles. Renner shoved me to the edge. Last chance. Wind whipped my face. Below, toxic water pooled in neon green puddles. Go to hell, I said. He sighed. Wrong answer. They pushed me. I fell, clawing at dirt until my hands caught a root. Dangled there, 30 feet above death. Renner laughed. Nature's brutal, isn't it? Then a gunshot echoed. Renner's laugh died. FBI, freeze! Agents swarmed the pit. Morales led them, badge gleaming. Renner's men dropped their weapons. Hang on, Jake! Morales yelled, but the root snapped. I plunged into the toxic pool. Acidic water burned my skin. I thrashed, screaming silent bubbles until strong hands hauled me out. A woman in an FBI jacket dragged me onto gravel. Breathe! Breathe! It was the Channel 6 reporter. Why? I choked. She showed me her press badge. Undercover FBI. Your water samples got flagged. We've been tracking Renner for years. Renner fled, but they caught him at the airstrip. Duke rode shotgun in Morales' car, barking at the cuffed billionaires. The reporter handed me a file. Renner's not the mastermind. He reports to this guy. The photo froze my blood. Governor Harris. At the press conference, I stood bandaged and shaky, Duke at my side. Cameras flashed as I exposed everything, the lithium, the murders, the governor. But that night, a black SUV parked outside Morales' safe house. A sniper laser danced on my chest. Morales shoved me down. They're not done with you. I opened Dad's safe one last time. Inside, a deed from 1932, stamped with a presidential seal. This land protected in perpetuity for the Mitchell family. The president couldn't save Dad, but maybe he'll save me. I mailed the deed to every major news outlet with one sentence. The president protects what's ours. Within hours, number Mitchell land trended worldwide. Protesters swarmed state capitals. The White House issued a statement. This administration honors historic covenants. Governor Harris held a press conference, sweating under studio lights. I had no involvement with Renner. These claims are baseless. The screen cut to footage from Dad's SD card. Harris shaking hands with Renner at the quarry, pocketing a diamond-studded USB drive. The reporter's voiceover. That USB contained $20 million in offshore transfers. Who else is bought? Harris resigned by dawn. Morales drove me to the rebuilt farmhouse, crowdfunded by strangers who believed the story. Duke bounded through the fresh grass, chasing squirrels like the past never happened. But the scars remained. My lungs burned from the toxic pool. Nightmares of Dad's fall. Renner's sneer. Linda died in prison. Heart attack, the report said. Derek hanged himself. I didn't celebrate. One evening, a limo pulled up. A woman in a pantsuit stepped out. President's chief of staff. She handed me a folder. Mitchell Land, Federal Protection Order. No more HOAs, no mining. It's yours forever, she said. I signed, hands steady. Morales became sheriff. He married the FBI reporter. They named their son Earl. Robert Harper visits every Sunday with Ethan, who's learning mechanics in Dad's restored workshop. Gonna fix cars like Jake someday, he says. I sit on the porch most nights, Mom's locket warm in my palm. Duke naps at my feet, twitching through old dreams. The woods are quiet now, but sometimes when the wind howls just right, I hear Dad's laugh. Nobody steals from a Mitchell.